Hi, this is the how-to for the Nutrition Applied for Units 4 and 5. So this is a little bit different because there's one document and you'll fill out the this. So you understand what's happening here. Okay, so here we are. We're at water, vitamins, and minerals. You will see the objectives of the assignment here, but let's start with the directions. Now, the very first step asks you if you've changed your diet significantly, or if you've discovered that your records were not kept very well and they don't reflect your dietary pattern. Now's the time to make some changes. So you can go back to those 3 days. Let's say you've started eating breakfast since you started this course. You will want to modify those 3 days to include breakfast, the typical breakfast for you. Or let's say you cut out soda and you're drinking more water. Okay, make those changes. All right, so make any changes that you've made in your dietary pattern. Now, if you haven't really made any changes and you look at those 3 days and say, well, that is how I eat, then leave them alone. Okay, that's the first step. Now, the next step is simply a copy and paste. You are looking at water through zinc, and you are filling in from your NCP reports your value, your goal, and your percent of the goal. I've included the UL here because that's going to be something important in a bit. But let me show you where you find this. It does say go to the bar graph report, but let's take a look. Okay, so what you're looking at here is you're looking at what you need to copy and paste. So the value, okay, starting with water, it might be a little difficult to copy and paste. You can just type in the numbers, your goal, okay, and the percent. And you do that for each value, goal, percent, all right? And if you look at this, you'll see that the units are in there. Okay, so you can see that the units are specified. It's really not a bad idea to write the units anytime you write an amount, because that keeps reminding you of what those units are. Okay, so that's easy. Just copy from those, the bar graph report. Okay, now we start to kind of dig in and analyze. So we're first going to look for anything that falls short of the goal. So less than 100%. So you can look back at your chart here and you can see which nutrients, including water, were consumed at less than 100%. And for those nutrients, you will write the name here. Okay, so let's say it's water or vitamin C. Whatever you consumed short of your goal, you write here. Okay, so that's fairly easy too, right? Nothing over 100%, nothing at 100%, just the nutrients that are below. Because for number 3, we're looking at what are you short in? Okay, what are your inadequacies, at least for those 3 days? Now the harder part. What you need to do is, using your textbook, find out for these nutrients that you're consuming at less than 100% of the goal, the major functions, type them in. I'd say at least 3. The dietary sources, same, give me a couple. And then what are the symptoms of a deficiency? Okay, and be detailed and specific. But please don't Google, because when you Google, you often pull up things that are inaccurate. Google doesn't do a good job in terms of vitamin deficiencies in prioritizing the most common. So you'll get something that's very rare. Use your textbook only. You're going to fill in this chart. So you'll learn about the functions and sources and symptoms of deficiency for things that you are short in. Now, this is a good place for me to mention being short in something, having an inadequate intake for 3 days does not mean you have a deficiency. Okay, so they're not equivalent. Deficiencies take longer to develop for sure. Probably the quickest to develop is water. You can become dehydrated over the course of a day or so, but most other nutrients, it takes much longer, days, weeks, months, for some nutrients, even years, okay? All right, now we're going back to that first chart where we have all our data, and you're examining that chart to see if you consume too much of anything. So for sodium, above the chronic disease risk reduction number, for all of the others, above the UL. Okay, now above 100% is not above the UL. So what you need to do is compare your value to the UL. Value, okay, to the UL. That's important. Now let's say you exceeded the UL, but this says here from synthetic niacin. So that would be in fortified foods or multivitamins, which should not be in your reports. Well, if that isn't the case, that it was all natural food niacin, you do not have to record that. Okay, so only if the shoe fits, all right? So only if the shoe fits. So when you're looking at this chart, it's not uncommon for students to have nothing in here. They didn't exceed any ULs or the CDRR for sodium. That's not unusual. The most common are probably sodium. A lot of us eat more than the CDRR for sodium, 2,300 milligrams. Niacin's not uncommon, but remember, it has to be synthetic. And occasionally iron, but not very commonly. It's very difficult to reach the UL through foods alone. And since you don't have multivitamins in your dietary records, you probably are not going to hit many ULs, if any. All right, but this is all the data, gathering and analysis. And now we're going to dig in a little bit further. So each of these chapters looks at vitamins, minerals, and waters from a functional approach. So chapter 9, it was focused on fluid and electrolyte balance. And what you're going to do is answer the questions. Did your intake from water, sodium, or potassium fall within the recommendations, at least 100% and lower than the UL? Remember, there's that wide margin of safety between that. Which were consumed at less than 100% or greater than the UL or CDRR. So you write those down. And then what I ask you is, what dietary modifications do you need to make to meet these recommendations? Now, I want you to be very specific as far as how much, how many servings, how many different foods to meet your goal. In the case of something that you just missed by a couple of percentage points, you can say, well, all I need to do is drink a little bit more orange juice, perhaps. But if something you're much lower in, you may need to make more dietary modifications. So this should show that you're thinking through amounts. Okay, and the way to get to amounts, if you really want to do a good job with this, is to say, okay, here's my value, and that's in grams, and here's the goal. So how much am I short? And then how do I convert grams to milliliters or cups? A little bit of research required there, but you should show me that you understand whether only a small fix is required or a bigger fix. And then you have another question here for the next chapter. But notice then you stop. Okay, for Unit 4, you stop after question 6 and you submit your work. You'll come back in Unit 5 on this same document that's half filled in, and you'll continue. And you'll see that you'll get it because the pattern is the same. The only thing different in Unit 5 is that at the end of this, you're going to address whether you think you need to consider a multivitamin or other vitamin or mineral supplement. Now, if you say, no, I don't like to take supplements, that's fine. But you should also show me that you can repair your diet with food, okay? You can't have the answer of, I don't want to supplement, but my diet is short in all sorts of ways. It has to be one or the other. You need to either fix your diet or fill in some of these gaps with a supplement. Now, what most dietitians recommend is try to fix the diet first, and then anything that still is a gap. For women, sometimes iron is a little difficult to meet. For many of us, vitamin D is difficult to meet. Then you consider a supplement. But you have to also address safety. And what I'm asking you to do is to refer to your textbook when talking about how to choose a supplement. Please don't just say, I'll talk to my doctor. There's information in your textbook about choosing a safe multivitamin. You, in most cases, don't need to talk to a doctor about taking a multivitamin, as long as you're saying with a low-dose multivitamin. But you do absolutely need to choose safely. And there are some guidelines you can follow. Okay, so that's Units 4 and 5. Take care.